6 o'clock in the center.
Yep. Beat me to it, David.
Sorry.
Well, welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Selectmen's meeting. It is August 24th. And just a quick reminder to anyone new tuning in, as declared by the governor of Maine during the state of emergency, the Board of Selectmen is meeting remotely and of course meeting subject to the Maine Freedom of Access Act. And as such, the public has been duly notified and is encouraged to participate remotely via telephone, video, or other similar electronic means. Any and all actions taken by the board, including adjournment, will be done by roll call. And we continue to encourage the public to engage with us via this format on Citizens Forum for any non-agenda items in the methods that we have outlined. If you have any questions about that, please contact the town office in advance of any of our meetings. And any representatives of committees or from the public also will be shepherded over by our town administrator when it is time for them to do so. So before we get rolling, Kern, would you read the quote of the evening?
I'd be glad to. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life. Henry David Thoreau.
Thank you very much. And David, do we have any citizens who wish to speak for any non-agenda items under the Citizens Forum?
We had nothing submitted via email, and I see nothing on the chat at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let's move along to the administrator's report.
Just a couple things for the general public. Absentee ballots, the applications are available now. The ballots are actually printed by the state of Maine and provided to us. They're required by statute to be here 30 days in advance of the election. We're hopeful that they will arrive early, but we will have them 30 days prior to November 3rd. And anybody that submitted an application prior will have those envelopes and labels ready to go, so we can mail those out immediately thereafter. Down at the harbor, had a chance last week to meet with Louis Rector from Lincolnville Telephone about internet access, so that if we want to continue moving forward with the possibility of broadcasting with the harbor cam, that's going to be a critical part of any installation, and he should be back to me in relatively short order. Tax bills went out last week, or 10 days ago or so now, 2,381 of them. First payment is due October 7th, and the second half is due April 7th, 2021. If you haven't received it and you're wondering where it is, certainly you can call here to the town office. We can get you another copy. And also received an email today regarding some concerns in other communities about abandoned utility poles in the right-of-way of roads. Like they put up a new pole and haven't taken down the old pole yet. Apparently they're trying to get a group together to advocate on a state level, either with the PUC or through legislative action to change the law regarding how and when those are removed. And if that's something that the board sees as a problem, I can get some more information, but I just thought I'd bring that up. Just arrived via email and didn't make it time for the agenda. And that is all I have to report besides what's on the agenda.
Do you want thoughts from the board on the utility poles now, or?
I would welcome any input that anybody, if it's not an issue, I won't simply ignore the email, but it won't be top priority. And if it's a bigger issue, we can see what's going on with the group.
Is anyone in the group aware of any poles in Lincolnville that are,
Have we had any complaints of older utility poles being left? The only two utility companies that I can think of would be Lincolnville Telephone Company and Central Maine Power, but has there been any?
We have, I don't think I've ever received a complaint on it. There are a few around, and what's been more the practice is eventually they get to it. I think they wait till they have some sort of critical mass. Oftentimes you see them cut off nearer the ground. And they leave them. Sometimes they ask us if we want them when they take them down. And I don't know as it's been that, it obviously hasn't been a big issue because nobody's called to complain, but that doesn't mean that they're on out there bothering some people. I know in some communities, it just seems to take forever for them to be removed. And obviously it bothers some people more than it has us.
yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see the need for us to jump right on this, but if anyone on the board feels differently, I'm also not opposed to.
Well, I was never aware of it being an issue until now. And I mean, it might be interesting to see that email, to see who it comes from. You said it didn't originate in town? In
No, it
Lincolnville?
actually, I think it may have started in Camden and been sent out to some area communities. And some have said they talk about it next select board meetings,
Huh?
It's a bigger issue, but
I mean, I'd be interested to keep abreast of the conversation, but not necessarily jump on board right away.
yeah. And I think now that we've talked about it a little bit on selectmen's meetings, maybe all of you in your travels will start to see them every other spot or not see them at all. And the public will certainly alert us if there's a tremendous problem, excuse me.
Any other questions or comments for David under administrator's report?
No.
Okay, let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are remote meetings unless announced otherwise. The Lakes and Ponds Committee meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, August 25th, 7 p.m. Midco Solid Waste Corporation Board of Directors meets Wednesday, August 26th, 6:30. Planning Board meets Wednesday, August 26th, 7 p.m. The town office will be closed for Labor Day on Monday, September 7th. And the Board of Selectmen meet next on Monday, September 14th, 6 p.m. September.
I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear you say that for just a little bit longer. Are there any upcoming community events remotely happening or the like that anyone wishes to share? Okay, nothing there. We have 3 sets of meeting minutes to go over. I will entertain a motion for the first set, August 10th.
I move the board approve the August 10th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson has been excused. Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you. The motion passes. Second set is for the 17th of August. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the August 17th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you. And the last set of meeting minutes we have is for the 18th of August.
I move that the board approve the August 18th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you. And as we move along to agenda item number 6, David is going to bring Butch over.
He's on his way.
Great. From Northeast Mobile Health Services to give us an update on our emergency medical services.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me tonight. So I don't have a formal report. I know you guys were given the annual report. You guys have that in front of you. What I thought I'd do is just go over those numbers really quick and then really just have you guys ask questions. I can give a little bit of an update about kind of current events and where we stand with the contract for next year, which I know is kind of the important topic for tonight. So going over that data really quick for Lincolnville, the average response times by town. So for you guys, the contract calls for 19-minute average response times over a quarter period. We measure that monthly and update that monthly to you guys. For the last year that ended this past June 30th, so the year matches, actually I'm not sure, you guys are on a fiscal year, July to June, right? So it matches your fiscal year. Quarter 1 was an average response time of 16 minutes and 14 seconds. Quarter 2 was 17 minutes and 22 seconds. Quarter 3 was 16:37. Quarter 4 was 15:37 for an average total annually of 16 minutes and 24 seconds. So unless you guys have questions on that.
No.
So the other thing that we, excuse me here while I fumble with my computer. The other numbers that we're tracking as far as response times, I know we've talked about this in some of the ambulance review meetings that we've had, are shoot times. So the response times that we've been tracking are a time that's measured from when the truck goes en route, when the ambulance goes en route to the call, to the time that it gets on scene at the emergency. The other important time to factor that we've kind of always, that we've started tracking the last 2 years anyway, are the shoot time. And the shoot time represents the amount of time of when the page goes off for the call and when the truck goes en route. So, some systems measure the response time as the point of the call, the tone, basically the point of Knox County Communications paging us to the point of us getting on scene. So for at least the last couple of years, we've been tracking that time as well. It's not a contracted number. It's just a kind of a FYI kind of number, and an important one to track that we've been doing. And overall for the year, that's been averaging about a minute to a minute and a half annually for the whole year, the whole time period. Yours was 1 minute and 26 seconds on average, which is fairly good. So that's the amount of time that it takes the ambulance to get out of the garage. Any questions? Sorry about that. The next one that we are contracted to meet is paramedic response. So basically the A, B, C, D calls, those are dispatch codes, and on the C, D, and E calls, we're required to send a paramedic on the majority of those. 95% or greater time we're contracted to send a paramedic on those call types. So we've measured that by town as well across the system. This is in conjunction with everybody. So it's not, this is measured, we measure this per town, but contractually it's across the board of all 4 towns. So you and Hope, Lincolnville, and Rockport, and the total average. Again, the contract number is 95% and measured quarterly. Each quarter on the contractual obligation, we've been over 99%. Basically for the entire year of the 19 2020 contract period, we've had one call that we didn't, that was either a C, D, or E call that we didn't send a paramedic on. So it's only been one call per quarter for the whole system that we didn't do that. So for a total annual percentage of 99.36%. And that's pretty much all I have for the contractual numbers. There's some patient surveys too, but unless you guys have questions on that, I won't go into that unless you want me to.
Does anyone want him to get into patient surveys at all?
No.
No, thanks, Butch. No.
So the update on the EMS system, things are going really great in Rockport. We're better staffed today than we probably have been in years. So staffing wise, we're very well off right now. We have a great bunch of people that are serving the community. We've had a few more paramedics. We've had a couple, one that's moved in from out of state into the area. We've had a couple of paramedics in the community that have come on board. So paramedic wise, we're staffed very well. You know, there are very few days that I would say that we don't have 3 trucks up in the system and two at night. One of the things that we were able to do because of staffing in the beginning of the pandemic, we actually increased a truck. So we put on an extra 24-hour truck in the system. So we had 4 trucks during the day and 3 at night. And then kind of we kept that going for some time. And then just the system really didn't need it. Call volume was down for us. Call volume, the emergency volume never picked up. But we probably held that extra truck for at least a good 8 weeks in the system, and really have the availability right now with staffing that if we needed to do that, we could probably easily put that truck back up as well. So, which, you know, that really helped, you know, mutual aid wise as too, since March, our mutual aid use has been way down. I still don't think it was all that, you know, we never had an over need for mutual aid, but we were able to really bring that down to near zero. So the other thing that you guys are probably aware of, I think David sent that out to everyone, the Rockport and Camden and the hospital are doing an evaluation, the informed community self-determination kind of evaluation of the EMS system as a whole. So they're working together to kind of review the needs of the hospital, review the needs of Camden and Rockport. You guys, I certainly want you guys to be a part of that as much as I know, you know, the agreement is between those 3 entities, but I'm really shooting for you guys to be part of the assessment of that as well as HOPE. I think it's really important that you guys be surveyed and you know, ask questions about what's working for you and what's not working for you, because you're also a user of the EMS, the same EMS service. So kind of stay tuned more on that. But basically what that is doing is, and I've for the most part kind of haven't been very informed either. I've gotten most of my information in just the last couple of weeks about this. But they're doing interviews of each one of those, doing interviews of Northeast, doing interviews of our staff, taking a look at our equipment. Usually this assessment is done on very, very rural kind of EMS, you know, systems and towns that don't have a lot of money, usually a volunteer service or near volunteer service currently that is looking to increase subsidies or wants more money. And there's a big question about, you know, usually from the town side of why do you need this? And then this assessment is recommended and done. And that's typically the environment that you find this assessment being done. I think you guys are, you know, the 4 towns are very well educated in EMS. I think going through this from Camden First Aid to us, and then just being informed over the years, I know from, you know, when we've started, I know everyone is very informed about how, you know, the whole EMS thing works, informed about, I think you guys are very well informed about the cost, and that this, you know, the system is not cheap. that's usually, like I said, that's usually where these are done. But I think it's the problems that have been brought up in the past, or the issues are number of ambulances seems to be everyone's, the hospital side and the town side. And it just comes to a balance of figuring out what the community needs are and what the hospital's needs are. And then how do you make it all work with the call volume? Because the call volume drives the revenue coming in for us that pays for it. So if there's something different that's wanted, basically where's the money going to come from to pay for it? So that's like I said, that's being done right now. That's kind of gearing up. So I think over the next few weeks, you guys will be hearing more about this. And I'm pushing really hard for you guys to be a part of that. So.
Any questions for Butch immediately on that? I have a number, none of which you're actually responsible to answer. Has everyone had a chance to review this document?
Uh,
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just got one question for Butch. It sounds like this took you by surprise, this evaluation.
So I was informed about it a while ago, but then it just dropped off. So probably before the pandemic hit, I was informed about the possibility of this happening, and I know, I kind of knew that it was going to happen, but then it just kind of dropped on me in the last couple of weeks that boom, yeah, we're moving forward with it. And
was that a formal FYI or was it in the?
No, the FYI months ago was not a formal FYI.
Yeah.
The one in the last couple of weeks was by the person that, by the entity that's been hired to do the assessment.
Okay.
I mean, certainly it took me by surprise being a sitting member on the EMS review committee and not being aware that these conversations were remotely happening. And, Butch, this isn't so much for you as a kind of a general comment to the board is, we went through a laborious process of a similar exercise when Camden First Aid fell apart in 2013, and the EMS review committee was formed for this very purpose of continuing this sort of conversation. And the fact that once again, we're here in a position where the formerly functioning consortium of the group of towns is now not only have two municipalities contracted with a private business to explore whatever it is they're exploring, but that we're apparently on a need to know basis. So all that being said, I guess, Butch, where does that leave us? I see that they have a rather aggressive timeline of 7 months to get these results, which they have to have because here we are inside the 10-month mark of looking at our, the close of our contract. And I frankly don't want to be in the position that we were in at the last contract renewal where we're out of contract and trying to figure something out.
As far as Northeast is concerned, we want to be in the community. We want to continue this, and we'd be willing today to sign an agreement with everybody to move forward for years with just a CPI increase. We're very comfortable with where we're at. We think the system that we have in place does work. We think the numbers show that. And what we've been saying all along throughout this whole thing is, if there are changes that need to be made or that the community as a whole wants to make, or even one community wants to make, just put that on the table, and I'll tell you what it's going to cost. I mean, that's all that, we very much, Northeast doesn't want to go anywhere. We very much want to be a part of the 4 communities. We have some kind of exciting things that I really can't go into right now, but we're starting, I don't know if you've seen in the news, we've started a new project up in Jackman, but that project opens some doors, hopefully, that we can actually put into the system that we have in Rockport and out of that base in Rockport for all 4 communities, that I think is exciting. And that's right now, it's just we want to do this. I've got to get all the parties kind of on board to do it, but basically Rockport and Camden, Hope and Lincolnville and the hospital would become a training ground for those paramedics to get experience that we have up in Jackman. So, but as far as, as far as the, signing a contract today, I think I'd feel more comfortable waiting. David and I talked a little bit about this, and it's, if this falls apart and all of a sudden something else happens, I don't want to, I can't, not that I don't want to, I would want to, but I staying around in that area for, just a few hundred calls a year just doesn't work for us, or it becomes very expensive for you, which doesn't work either. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the truth, is that without the participation of Camden and Rockport, it's not a viable business model to
Right.
just contract with Lincolnville and or Hope if that was a possibility. I mean,
Correct.
do you have, not, I don't want to put you on the spot in terms of numbers, but I'm just sort of morbidly curious in terms of what those numbers would look like. And I don't even have any expectation that any possible number set would also relate to our current level of service. I mean, I'm just curious of what the intersection of service and dollar signs would, just how substantial would that look for our town?
The expense side of the house is, $500,000 to $600,000 to staff a truck 24/7.
Yep.
So somewhere in that range, and then we take out the revenue, and that's the problem. The revenue side for a few hundred calls, where you're bringing in less than $500 per call. So basically, you take the expense and just I got to pay for that time. So. Yep.
Okay.
One of the things we looked at back when the evaluation was done at the time, when there were some potentially substantial changes at Camden First Aid, and it certainly came to pass with that. But at that time, and which is obviously much more in tune with this today than I was, we were told by the people that were assisting us then that it takes about 2,000 calls a year to support one ambulance. And we're not at 2,000 calls a year amongst the 4 towns today. And I don't know if the 2,000 number is still even in play, but that puts it in perspective. Lincolnville had 140 calls last year or something. So 137 in Lincolnville. So that gives you some idea of where we stand in the bigger picture of the whole thing. The other thing is, so that we don't come across too poorly, the board back before the fiscal year ended, but certainly in pandemic time, we did see a draft of this community, and we were asked if we wanted to possibly contribute and join in, which we didn't have any money, so that was going to kind of rule us out for a period of time. But just so the folks, anybody else tuning in, it's not completely think we get left out in the dark on that.
Yeah. So basically, Butch, we're waiting for the results of this study to come out and for Camden and Rockport to indicate some sort of direction that they're going.
I mean, I don't know if we need, if we'll have to wait 7 months. I really hope this project doesn't take 7 months. I can't imagine that it would. Kevin's getting started now with it, with scheduling interviews, and he's requested some information from me, some, as much data that I'm willing to share with him, which is really all of stuff that you guys, see monthly, was share with him. I know he's also requested some data from the state, and I've pointed him in the direction of Knox County Communications as well. The problem with the state data is that's, we were pulling numbers from the state for a little while. That was questioned because it's basically generated from our data. So they wanted, at one point it was questioned that we wanted more accurate data from Knox. So we've switched gears probably a year and a half to 2 years ago, pulling numbers from Knox County. So I've pointed Kevin in that direction too, to try to get numbers from Knox. So he's in the process right now of collecting data, and then setting up interviews. And again, he's kind of asked who, right now I know all the key players and all of the community, the entities that are joined into this are going to be interviewed, but they've also asked who else in the community would be, people to interview. And I'm certainly going to point them in the direction of you guys and Hope. So, but I think in 2 or 3 months, we'd have a better understanding of where this is going.
So is that sort of your soft deadline goal, hopes, wishes, dreams for having a more informed conversation?
Yeah, I think let's give this a couple more months, and I think we'd be in a better place of making a decision.
Okay.
I would love nothing more than to just say yes. So let me send David the contract, and we'll take care of this immediately, no problem. But which I could do, and if we all in agreement that we as long as we had an out, that all of a sudden you guys and Hope are the only towns that are viable for me, I'd have an out. But I think my word is that I'm committed to the community and want to be there. It's just what happens with this self-determination project.
Mm-hmm. Questions from the rest of the board for Butch?
Yeah, Butch. You mentioned earlier, and I think you may have touched on this, maybe answered this question. You mentioned earlier that you'd like Lincolnville and Hope to participate in this in the form of interviews and surveys. I take. Could you so it's for a data gathering. Could you kind of flesh that out though? How we could help? How you'd like us?
Just to be interviewed. So I know the company that's been hired, Kevin, and he's hired a couple of other people to kind of run the project with him. But Kevin McGinnis is heading up the project. Kevin was actually the CEO of Northeast back when the Camden First Aid, switched over to Northeast. So Kevin was in charge of the project back then for Northeast. Kevin left Northeast, several years ago, 5-6 years ago. I took over his role here. But they've hired Kevin, and he's hired some other folks locally and nationally to help. I think just total. And it's just to basically be interviewed. I think having at least the town managers interviewed, or however you guys want to do that or divvy that up. I think it's important that you guys get heard. What what works for you, and what you guys are very different than Camden. Well, Hope is very different than Camden. So I think it's you guys have been part of this since the beginning, and I think you guys deserve to be heard. So I'm just advocating for that.
Yeah, I see. Thanks.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate that. And as David said, yes, it was offered to the board to financially contribute to this study and participate, but it was so far beyond our, it wasn't within our abilities necessarily to be able to plan for or allocate the money for, or even help draft up the asks of the consultants. So I certainly hope that we're considered in the conversation.
Yeah.
And just to chime in, everything I've heard to date has been either from the hospital or the folks we've been working with has been, they want the region to be more inclusive than exclusive. And obviously there are strength in numbers, even if it's a lot of little places making up the numbers. So I don't think we're going to be, we may not have the same say as if we were in it financially or had written the agreement, but I don't think there's any intention of excluding us either.
Other thoughts from other board members or? No, nothing?
Yeah, good.
Well, I guess, and I'm being a sour pickle here on this, I'll admit, but I really reading through it all. I really wonder where it leaves us, as far as, it's a very good study. They're figuring out their game plan for the three partners there, but I don't see any wiggle room of any other people added into this mix. Maybe I'm just reading it wrong, but I am very concerned about that.
Yep. Well, and not to, Butch doesn't, he's not even the messenger in this situation.
I
So,
realize.
well, Butch, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to come down and pop in virtually and go over our numbers, go over where you are and a little bit of where we're headed. And I guess I will just say from my perspective, having actively been part of this conversation since Camden First Aid was our EMS provider, it certainly feels very frustrating to be sitting where we're sitting, and feel like we can't be proactive as much as I wish we could be proactive. But I very much appreciate that you are willing to be so communicative. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and again, whatever you guys need from me, I mean, I'm just a phone call away, so I can pop into these meetings anytime. Again, it's just we very much value the relationship with all four towns, and we look forward to serving the community moving forward into the future. So we hope we can do that. So
thank you very much, and let's tentatively plan a date in a couple of months to hopefully have another check-in.
perfect.
Okay, much
Thank you.
appreciated. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch.
Okay, thanks.
All right, if there's nothing else on agenda item number 6, let's move along. We have, as Selectman Garrettson is, I think, somewhere in the woods. We have another representative from the Broadband Committee to give us an update.
Oops, I brought the wrong person over. Look out. So I'll send him back. To do that. See if I can get Dave Perkins this time. He's on his way.
Great. So the board will remember that at our last get to meeting, the broadband committee had come up with a survey. And so my understanding is that they wish to share preliminary results with us. David, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Ah, yes, there you are. Welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me. This will be not a long check-in, but our committee is really in the brainstorming phase. A lot of good stuff happening, so we wanted to be regularly checking in with the board. And Josh is off hiking, so he can't share that this week. So a couple of things I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of quickly go through the initial results of the survey and also use this podium to encourage people to go to the Lincolnville town website and to fill out the survey because we're trying to finish it now. David, could you bring up the survey?
I think I can.
Thank you.
I hope I can.
And then after we go through the survey, I just wanted to update you on a few other things. Okay, so first thing is we've had 141 people respond so far. David, what's households in Lincolnville is like 900 or 1,000? Is that a rough good guess?
Yeah, it really depends on who you count in terms of year round or seasonal or somewhere in between. Your number's as good as mine. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because I Googled that. That's what I came up with. And the LCI said they have like 1,100 names on their list. I didn't quite follow that, but the point is, so far we have 141. That's a great start. We want to increase that, and we're taking multiple steps to get the word out more and to get people to fill out the survey. We're going to put up some signs. We're going to possibly have a mailing. So if anybody could do that now, that would be great. Keep going on down, Dave. Obviously, internet's important to people. Keep going down to the next one about who is your internet provider. This is interesting. So it shows, that Lincolnville or LCI for the people surveyed, it covers 80% of their being their provider, but there's a number of others shown as well that are really small players. The next slide there is also interesting because of the people surveyed, 41% have fiber optic and 42% are on DSL. The DSL is the slow service that many people are complaining about. Can you keep going down? Let's see. Keep going down further. I keep scrolling down. Keep going. I'm going to go by the technical stuff. Keep going. Okay, whoops. Then go right back up to that circle about are you satisfied? This is the big result, in our mind. So when asked, are you satisfied with the internet service you currently have in your home? 71% of people are not satisfied. So that's, we found that was really telling. If you go to the next screen, it shows the various reasons. They're not surprising: slow speeds, not reliable, high cost, poor customer service are the big ticket items. The next screen is very interesting, where it asks, does anyone in your household use the internet to work from home? And you see that there's 27% is full-time. But if you take out the no's, which is 24%, you have, almost 76% of the homes using the internet for work. And, that's obvious that not just because of the pandemic, but the way the world's going, having good internet service is going to be really critical. Keep going down. And then you get to this question about students. Of the people surveyed, only 27% had students using internet, which seemed low to me, but maybe we're just hitting people who are non-child. And then keep going down. And this is also an interesting question. Do you have access to fiber optic internet but choose not to subscribe to it? And about 20% of the people who have access to it indicate that they've chosen not to subscribe. And then Dave, could you go down finally to the suggestions at the end? Okay, and then we asked, do you have suggestions? Regional broadband initiative. These are things that we're also hearing from people talking to us: more providers or town ownership. Have the option for a different provider. So as a first step, we feel like this is good data, but we want everybody to fill it out. So our big pitch is to please get to work doing that. David, you can take this down now. So just a couple of other updates. The first is We did look at the franchise agreement that Lincolnville has with LCI, and it expired last year. So that's just a point to share with you that actually could create some flexibility if the town decides to do a particular thing this year. We also have learned that Rockport and Camden are forming a committee to study a municipal form of internet provider. There was a similar project. There's different types of options. Like Islesboro has formed their own internet system, and they also run it. That's a closed system. There's a number of towns looking at just having what they call the dark fiber, which is simply the fiber that you then hire services to activate and to provide the actual service itself. So there's a lot of discussion out there about towns either taking the big step of providing internet service, controlling that, or simply having a platform through the dark fiber where people can choose, have a broad range of high quality choices of service providers. So we're looking at that. And as I said, Camden and Rockport are doing that as well. We've also been in contact with the Island Institute, which regularly reminds us that they have money to provide to us as grants if we move forward. And we've also met with a great resource, a guy named David Leipold, who's a consultant on these issues, and he very much impressed us. So if we do come back with recommendations, and if the town decides to do something, this is a highly technical, we saw him as a great resource. So just to recap, we got the initial survey information back. We're hoping in September to wrap that phase. We started off kind of a little bit impatient, just trying to figure out how to get fiber optic to everybody. And I think our discussion now is moving a little bit more toward what's the long-term solution. Particularly going through the pandemic, it makes you realize that jobs, telehealth, kids learning from home, all the things that we're experiencing right now really point to how important internet service is. And so we're kind of focusing maybe on being more bold than just trying to plug some holes, and really try to come up with something that meets the town's needs long-term. So we'll be back to you. Just wanted to update you tonight, and hopefully in the fall, we'll come back with some recommendations.
So just quickly for clarity, you mentioned September as a date that you want to have a critical mass of data from the survey, or you want to be able to deliver a report on all the charges that you touched on?
We're hoping to finish the survey early fall. We won't be coming back to you with recommendations, I don't think, unless things coalesce really quickly in September. But we know you're eager to hear from us. So, and Mike, I don't remember if we, I know we talked about various dates at our last meetings.
We did, but we didn't decide on a recommendation date, a date to present a recommendation.
I had the sense, though, it won't happen as quickly as next month, because we really are still in the very active stage of knocking around ideas. And I think we have good information now. And now the group kind of has to coalesce around recommendations.
Well, I'll say to the rest of the Board of Selectmen that seeing as how the charge to the ad hoc committee technically expired in June 30th, and we extended it with consideration to the issues that the pandemic presents, but we as a board are going to have a conversation about amending this charge from the Board of Selectmen so that we can perhaps apply a more realistic date. I have just a quick question for you. What is the critical mass that you're hoping to get? I mean, obviously 100% would be fantastic, but have you as a committee discussed what number of responses you will be satisfied with as a representation of the population?
It's too bad Josh isn't here because he's really taken the lead on the survey.
Sure, yeah.
You know, I've heard 20% knocked around, but I don't, as you asked the question to me, I don't have a confident number to give you.
Okay, all right. Does the board have any questions for David? I know we don't want to shoot the messenger necessarily, but
Not so much a question, but just a comment. I feel that the information that you have there may be skewed due to the fact that it appears that the response has come from an overwhelming amount of people with fiber optic. And I think that those people have connectivity. However, they may be using it or whatever equipment they may be drawing that signal in with could make them, say something that, if you don't have the equipment that is recommended, then things may be a little bit off. But I'm pretty interested to know how we're going to teach our kids in the next year. And I know there's more out there than what you're showing for, DSL and dial up, all of that. So I don't know how you're going to reach those people. I just don't know how you're going to do that. But it's just a comment. It's not a question. It is a concern. I think the numbers, my own personal opinion is those numbers may be slightly skewed due to a lot of people that responded having the fiber. And I myself did not respond because I do have fiber. We have proper connectivity. I think we're looking for the people who don't have the connectivity and need it. That's the information I'm looking for.
And the people with families, are really stressed out these days, and they may be distracted by other things. So we're going to post signs. We're going to, one of the reasons being here tonight was to push people to get out and fill out the survey, and we'll do a mailer as well.
Perfect.
Great.
That's all I have.
David, you had a comment?
I was just, excuse me again. I was just talking early on, we talked about the possibility of a mailer, and I threw a little cold water on it because of the way the mail is delivered. Some of it, or a fair amount of it, would end up in Northport if we use the everyday direct mail. But we do have done a little background research here, and we do have some ways to do some extracts from our tax data that we may be able to hit more targeted. It may cost us a little bit more in postage, but when you eliminate sending it to Northport, we may have, maybe a wash in the end. So if the committee wants to explore that, we probably ought to have either a Word document or something, but you're also going to have to consider that when those come back, somebody's going to have to enter the data. It'll be doable, but could be a fair amount of work.
Are there any more questions for David Perkins while we've got him?
I do not know.
Thanks, everybody.
All set.
Thank you, David.
Thanks a lot, David.
Thank
Thank
you, David, for jumping on and giving us an update.
Thanks.
So as David brought up, and Mike, you may, not that you're a representative, but
I'm on. Yeah, I'm wearing a couple hats here. Yeah.
We currently have a charge, and Kern, you brought up the very good point that in several places in the charge from the Board of Selectmen to the ad hoc committee, it emphasizes in several places of really trying to figure out the underserved or unserved areas in the town. Right. And it's quite obvious that it is a more time-consuming process. So what are the board's thoughts on our next agenda, having a conversation about revising the charge to the ad hoc committee so it actually has a realistic time frame?
I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, serving on the broadband committee, I agree. And there are a lot of options out there. And I think I wasn't part of giving the charge, but I think when it first came down, the town was only looking at one or two possibilities. And I think we're discovering there are more and more out there, which people in town may want to do. We don't know. We don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, well, and certainly from my perspective, I didn't have any intention of like who or the what, or
Right.
just that this is truly a very comprehensive and proactive look at what our options are. And I just want to make sure that this isn't an open-ended conversation, that there is a deadline, and that at
Correct.
some point it's going to have to be called. This isn't a committee that needs to exist forever and ever and ever necessarily. And so to make sure that the committee stays on task, and for lack of finding better words, that your collective feet are being held to the fire, so that we get.
I think that's a great idea. Deadlines are wonderful things. They make they make the world go around. And the committee could use one, sure.
So David, is a general nodding of heads of putting this on the next agenda to have this conversation.
Yep.
It'll be great. Josh will be back.
Yeah, do you want feedback from the committee prior? I don't know if they have any meetings scheduled. Are you looking to just have a conversation and rework it, for lack of a better word, at the meeting?
I mean, certainly if they have some input, that would be helpful. We heard September for the survey results, which, isn't that far away. So, if we could get some additional feedback, perhaps when the chair of that committee is back, then we can make as informed determination as we can.
The other thing that's important for the board to be aware of, and I know that, or I believe the committee is aware of it. State of Maine voters in July approved a $15 million bond issue for the Connect Me program, which at some point, nobody's come up with a timeline yet, but I'm sure they're working on the programmatic aspects in Augusta, but at some point that money's going to be available. And if that's something that worked into our program, that might plug a lot of gaps. Certainly not going to do a municipally owned service, but if we could get a share of that to do some of the town with somebody, if that was in our interest, there's no money like spending somebody else's, I guess.
Or all of our money, as it were.
Yes, good point. We might as well get some of our money back rather than have it shipped someplace else.
Grant money and bond money is not free money. It's just different money.
Yeah.
So the only other comment that I guess I would say before we move off of this topic, or if anyone else has any questions or comments, I'm concerned at the amount of comments I saw in the survey results, that there is an amount of people in town that are under the impression that we have had any sort of control over internet service in the town, or that the town is in the habit of micromanaging private companies. And so I guess I would just want to make sure, as part of this process, that we're not unwittingly participating in a level of complaining or conversation about a position the town is or is not in terms of internet service for our citizens. So.
Unfortunately, lately, we all know that the town is not managing that and hasn't, but it only takes one person who's ill-informed, who starts talking and either talks the talk or leaves something out, and then it becomes a town run organization. So all we can do is make sure when we talk about it, the people know the way it is, and it'll fall where it does.
Yeah, speaking of which, David, would you just quickly touch on, because it's been brought up a couple of times about the franchise agreement with the town of Lincolnville that has expired. Would you please just speak to that briefly?
Sure. Couple of things. Franchise agreement with regards to cable TV. It has absolutely nothing to do with internet service. However, there are some cable systems that offer internet service as well, but not here. Internet service is a unregulated enterprise. Any entity is free to offer it in Lincolnville or any place else in the United States that I'm aware of, or certainly in Maine. And so, you know, if Time Warner or Spectrum or Red Zone wanted to come back in town and offer internet service, we wouldn't be able to prohibit it as long as they met up with the various other approvals. So I know that it's hard for some people to believe, and I don't want to be the cheerleader necessarily for Lincolnville Telephone, but they've made quite an investment in our community. All you have to do is go one community north where DSL is a luxury to recognize what we have here now in terms of availability. Still kind of surprises me that of the people that it's available to, how many people don't choose to subscribe to it. Maybe they don't know it exists. I don't know. But certainly back to the original question on the franchise agreement, franchises regarding cable TV.
Thank you. I just wanted, it's been brought up, and as you said, Kern, the things that are left out leave certain people to believe certain things. And so it's important that we understand the structure and the framework around the role that the town plays currently. So are there any other questions or comments or things to think about for next time we have this conversation?
Yeah, I would suggest one thing, is I think that the committee could use some clarification on if the Board of Selectmen is willing to get behind or a mailing, and how that, and what that would cost. And I know the committee has said that it's more than willing to do the data entry or whatever, the analysis of written responses, but and stuff envelopes as well. But in terms of cost, we want to know if that's something that, if the town is willing to get behind.
It sounds like David will have more information for next time we get together to have that conversation. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, let me get some information from either you, Mike, or the committee in terms of who you'd like it to go, and then I'll see how we can maybe get an extract of data we have to match up as closely as we can, and then we can estimate cost pretty easily.
Okay, I will do that.
Fantastic. All right, anything else on this? Can we move on? All right, moving along, we have appointment of municipal officials.
Lately, I would recommend to the board that we table this until the next select board meeting in hopes that we have a full complement of selectmen to do this.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Was that Mike?
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Selectman Late and a second by Selectman Ray. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you. We are tabling that until next time. And we have some community interest forms before us. And some of the individuals were not invited to come to the reappointments. And we have the opportunity to interview any new applicants if the board wish.
On the first one there, I move that the board appoint Cecil Dennison to the cemetery trustees as an alternate with a term expiring June of 2021.
I'll second that.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there discussion? Thank you, Cecil, for continuing to serve the town. If there's no further discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes,
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. The motion passes. I will entertain another motion.
I move that the board appoint Scott Harrison to the planning board as a regular member with a term expiring June 2021.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion?
I just have just one quick question. I know that we appointed 2 people last time, and I don't know who are alternates and who are regular members.
We currently just have one alternate, correct?
Yes. Jay Foster is the only alternate we have.
So
Okay,
Scott has previously served on the planning board and
Right.
apparently just missed the
Yeah,
deadline.
right. No, I understand that. Yeah, I was just confused. I didn't know.
Yeah.
What roles were being filled. Yeah.
Yeah, and previous to the previous appointments, the planning board was in a
Oh, yeah.
bare bones situation.
Oh,
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing nothing, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you very much.
And the others, Madam Chair, are here because they were new people that were interested in not reappointments, but but new.
Yep,
If you
correct.
want, they're all of them.
Does the board wish to chat with any of the new applicants?
should we table this until after we have the conversation about the broadband committee and the charge and all of that? Or what do we do with that?
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation.
Well, being on the board, I'd suggest, being on that committee, I mean, I'd suggest we go ahead with this. And so they are up to speed to the extent possible of what might happen with the expansion or the change, modification of the charge. The broadband committee right now is not currently hurting for members,
Yeah,
but I mean, we're not, but at the same time, the more that people are up to speed, the sooner the better. So,
well, I'm certainly curious because there's a lack of information on one applicant, so have they both read the charge?
I don't know.
Does the board want to chat with them, or does the board want to hold off on any new appointments to the broadband committee, I guess is the question. Pending a committee charge conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
I would hold off. That's my own personal opinion.
I mean, nothing's going to happen to their application. David, I wonder if you could reach out to at least one of the applicants and get a little bit more information in the big blank space of why there's interest in that committee. I would be interested in that.
They're both listening. We're both here and ready to go, so I'm sure they heard it, but I certainly can fill in blanks. And I wonder now if I've got something else, but I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know.
Yeah, I looked for an attachment or a resume or something that would come along with something like that, but didn't see it. So at the risk of inconveniencing them slightly, I think we'll just have a chat with them further down in the agenda next time, if that's amenable to the board.
Fine by me, yeah.
Okay. And then we have an applicant for the cemetery trustees. Would someone care to make a motion?
I move to appoint Rosendo Gary to the cemetery trustees with a term expiring June 2023.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there discussion? Do we have the applicant here?
He is available to you if you wish to speak with him.
Does the board wish to ask questions of the applicant? Doesn't sound like anyone's
I'm
jumping.
good.
Okay. Everybody good?
I'm all set.
Excellent. So if there's no further discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. For any current applicants, future applicants, we have many positions open here in the town. I apologize, it's getting dark. I don't have any more lights to turn on in my room, so we'll just try to keep moving this along. Is there anything else under committee and commission appointments? Seeing nothing there, to move on our next agenda item, I will first need a motion.
I move that we suspend our meeting as the Board of Selectmen and that we convene as the Board of Assessors.
second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. We are now convened as the Board of Assessors. And do we have Vern?
No,
Okay, we're moving ahead. Do you want to just give a brief intro of what our business is here tonight?
sure. The assessor's agent has prepared the municipal valuation return, which is required by the state of Maine to be submitted by November 1st, which is basically a data gathering, call it an exercise, but a data gathering tool, so they can compare us with other communities in the state, as well as send us our homestead and tree growth reimbursements. And it's just numbers out of the commitment that you did at the last meeting and data that we have here at the town office.
Perfect.
That,
Just in case anyone wondered.
Yeah.
I like to be transparent.
Yep.
Okay, I will entertain a motion, please.
I move that we approve and sign the 2020 municipal valuation return as prepared by the assessor's agent.
second.
Second.
Well seconded. Moved by Selectman Late, seconded. I'll give this one to you, Mike, by Selectman Ray. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. And before we can continue on with our other business, I need a final motion.
I move that we adjourn our meeting as the Board of Assessors and reconvene as the Board of Selectmen.
Go ahead, Dave.
second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Ray, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. We are back in business as the Board of Selectmen. Up next, I thought it would be worthwhile to at least explore and have a conversation about our reopening plan and where we are currently. We are in phase 2. And unfortunately, given that there is a rise in cases both in Maine and Waldo County, and the fact that, truth be told, there just isn't a real clever way of safely managing public access in a way that is fair and equitable. I don't see this conversation going very far, but I would love to hear the board's thoughts.
Well, although I would like to get back to all of us being in the same conference room when we have our meetings, I think there's a lot to being said for doing things in person. With regard to the facts and what we're seeing on a daily basis, a steady rise in the cases, and we're struggling to open our schools locally. They're all going to open. We don't know for how long. In my opinion, I feel we should continue as we are right now. Maybe, everybody feels differently about this, and I get it and I respect that. But my opinion is I think we're doing a very good job, and none of us are at risk, and the town needs us. And I think we should continue this way right now.
Yeah, I would second that, Kern, but I would also ask David or anybody here if they've heard any comments from people in town who have said, I wish there were, selectmen would go back to in-person meetings I haven't heard any of that. Have you, David?
The only comment I've heard was several months ago, a member of the staff said, well, we're in here working. Why are the selectmen in here working? But no citizens have asked that question.
Okay, thanks.
Well, and the hard truth is that we have figured out a good configuration for the board to be safe, but I feel that we would not be doing our best work by potentially putting any applicants or members of the public at risk, or unwittingly putting our town office staff at risk by opening our doors, because when we open an in-person meeting, it's open to quite literally everybody and anybody. And so I wouldn't want anyone that works for us to be put at risk because of frustration we have.
I agree.
Okay, well, we'll just see how it goes and revisit the conversation
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah, and at some point, not to jump before you go to the next thing, at some point that may be decided for you, because if and when the state of emergency is lifted, you'll have a grand total of I think it's 30 days after that, within which you're going to have to be back, but that may be a period of time away.
Yep. Okay. If there's nothing more on this topic, we'll move along to agenda item number 12, consideration of the Waldo County Budget Committee ballot. Does anyone have any questions about this agenda item? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board cast the town of Lincolnville's Waldo County Budget Committee ballot for, hold on. Yep. Where is it?
Would that be Gabe Pendleton from the town of Hillsborough?
Yeah, it is. Sorry. For Gabe Pendleton, a municipal officer from the town of Owlsboro.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
Seeing no discussion. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thanks, Gabe, for throwing your hat in the ring. And so agenda item number 13. Do you want to give a little bit of a lead on this, even though we've talked about it kind of at length in previous board meetings?
Me? Sure. Consistently on, at least on an annual basis, when we do budget preparation, we look at different methods of delivery of services. We all heard last week that Road Commissioner Young informed you that he was not going to be seeking reappointment when his current term ends in 2021. He oversees a fair amount of the municipal budget, a little over 40%. And we're also looking at taking on the voter approved park along Atlantic Highway that again, the voters approved in July, which is going to add a number of costs and services and how to accomplish into the budget mix. And the general thought was that we ought to go and look at all of our municipal services, see how they're delivered, to see if there's any more efficient or effective way to do that. So the board asked that we here in the office put together a list of employees and contractors that we utilize and vendors for various services. So we put together a preliminary list. This certainly doesn't hit every, paper vendor and copier vendor and that type of thing, but certainly gets the vast majority of them and is broken down into two sections, whether it be employees or contracted services. And most of those have costs associated with them or budget amounts associated with them that we spend. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I think there are certainly contracted services that probably are relatively easily to strike off the list of things that we might bring in-house or look to do in a different fashion. I mean, you look down at the list, I see Knox Dispatch on there. We're going to pay somebody to dispatch, and we're not going to have our own dispatch here in town. Ambulance service, we talked about that earlier tonight. So there are some, like hose and ladder testing for the fire department. There are some things we cannot do ourselves because we're prohibited from doing them, that we probably can draw a line through pretty quickly. But this will give you something to look at as we start this conversation. I think it's important for the board and the community to know where we are today in terms of delivery of service, so that you can't figure out where you want to go if you don't know where you are. You have to start with the basics. Where are you? Who's doing it for you now? How does that get done? And then you can say, okay, we understand where we are and we know the things that we need to accomplish, and then look at each piece and say, is there a different or better way to do that, whether it be combining things or breaking things out, taking some duties and responsibilities away from, the town administrator and giving it to somebody else, or bringing more for the town administrator to do, however you want to do that. But you have to know where you are to start. And we'd also talked at one point about perhaps doing a bit of a road trip to make sure we all have an understanding of, the different facilities that we do have that you're charged with overseeing. So you'd have that basic, everybody's on the same knowledge level as we move forward. So I guess I'll stop rambling at this point.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, David. So I don't think we need to get into a real heavy conversation about numbers and how they apply to the various services that we're currently contracted for. I think, David, you put it very well. Now that we have these numbers, and I encourage all of you to take them out of your binder and put them in one of your little envelopes so that it doesn't get recycled, or just hang on to it. And I would love a commitment from the board to do this tour as soon as possible. You know, I think while it's still seasonal, so that we can, you know, we can see everything sort of in the peak of service, with the exception of plowing, obviously, but that's its own conversation. So
Well, Mother Nature could always provide us with a foot of snow just for the heck of it next week.
it's true.
Exactly.
Please, no.
A joker in every crowd.
So I'd like to know people's thoughts and time frame for that. And obviously we don't have to sit here and nail down a date immediately, but
I think it'd be a good idea. I'm fine with what he wrote on before the next meeting and run around and do that if everybody else can hit that. If not, another date would probably work fine for me. I'm open.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely make that work also.
I can too.
Yeah, me three. Yeah, I'm open as well.
Okay,
That's great.
okay, great. So David, let's get that in the works.
Might we be able to start, are you talking as a group traveling separately, or are you talking individual trips? You know what I mean?
I would think it'd make more sense for the group traveling separately if everybody's willing to do it. I mean,
Okay,
in this day and age, I'd much rather see 2 or 3 people hop in a truck and follow around, but you can't do that. So,
Right.
yeah.
and so if we're all gonna go as a group but travel separately, might we get an earlier start at the next meeting?
Okay.
And what would be a reasonable start time?
I can be flexible.
I can do most anything. My employers are very nice to me.
Yeah. Anytime. Yeah, anytime that works for the group. Sure.
I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
8 AM it is. No, just, I'll,
Yeah, David, do you want to put some thought into how much time it might?
yeah, that's probably what I'll do is figure out when the sunset is and then backtrack, then let everybody know a reasonable time.
Okay, great. Excellent. Was there anything on the list that stuck out to anyone or anything that is missing that we want to consider as we move forward?
I just wanted to touch base on something that David said. It's very, very interesting and very important that the road commissioner oversees approximately 40% of the municipal budget. That's big.
Mm.
And I think we need to do the right thing with this and a few other things. That's what I've got to say.
Nope, well said. And he's also overseen a significant portion of the budget for a significant portion of the town of Lincolnville's modern existence. And we are so grateful for his service, because it really truly has been a service to the town. And that is, you know, worth keeping in the back of everyone's minds, is that, you know, Bernard has been doing an incredible amount of work for the town, and we only recently just gave him a pay increase. So, you know, just kind of holding all these numbers in your mind as we move through this exercise and as we move through this tour, so that we can start to pull all the pieces together for a real constructive conversation. Any other questions, thoughts, things we should keep in mind as we move forward with this to our tour next meeting? All right, seeing nothing, let's move along to selectmen updates. Selectman Garrettson isn't here. Selectman Barrows, do you have any updates for us?
A couple, Midcoast Solid Waste meeting is Wednesday, our monthly meeting this month. And that looks like that will be proactive and doing a good job. I also went on the 17th. I went over to Norwich Walk to Waste Management to look at where we're contemplating sending our garbage for the next for our municipal waste, excuse me, for the next 3 years. And they run a class act. It was a eye-opening experience. It is a landfill. It's very neat as a landfill can go. They keep the property up very nice. They keep everything covered as much as possible. It's got 2 closed landfills there. And it's got one open one and plans for 2 more that they were working on down the road. And as landfills go, I'd say they do a very good job. It's a well-run operation.
Thank you. Any questions for David on that?
No.
All right. Selectman Lake, do you have any updates for us?
I don't. We haven't had the 2 committees for Midco Solid Waste. Neither of those, we have not had a meeting. And our monthly meeting, like David said, is coming up Wednesday night. So I anticipate it. Looked over the agenda. We've got a lot going on, but it's all good stuff for all the towns. So we'll have some information for you for our next meeting.
That's great. Selectman Ray, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, a couple. Just a couple things that may be coming on the our agenda in the future. And one of them has to do with email addresses for us. I was just did a training, as it were, with the Maine Municipal Association, and they went over the freedom of access laws pertaining to municipal officials. And one of their suggestions, and I thought it was a good one, is that selectmen and perhaps other town people working for the town have a separate email address from their personal email addresses. And that might make things a lot easier if, for whatever reason, those conversations become actionable, as they say. And then, because they're public records, right? And then there wouldn't be whomever, attorneys or people would not be looking through our own personal email accounts trying to find those public records. Anyway, so I talked with Dave about it briefly, and he let me know that the IT, it's doable. We have the infrastructure to do that if the board wants to do it. So I thought we might want to have a conversation about that down the road. And the second thing is that we had talked about briefly the town doing a woodshed like pantry on town property, and I'm talking with Pete Rollins about that, the emergency management director, and I also communicated with the Waldo County Woodshed and see if they either have plans for doing that or if they might be willing to help us make that happen. And anyway, so I'm going to try to arrange a time when we can all meet and get on the agenda, and we might want to talk about that as well. That's it.
So you'll see it. We'll put it on the agenda to see if it's something the board wishes to move forward with.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for your update.
Oh yeah.
And I have, as Butch implied earlier, I have nothing to report because the EMS review committee has not met, so nothing to report. Thank you all very much. We have the treasurers and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
Yes. Right there.
And I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
A second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much. And does the board have any more business it wishes to conduct? I'm always interested to read the quarterly reports that are submitted to us. I find those statistics fascinating, and it's really great to see what's been happening in the town. So thank you for those. So if there's no further business the board wishes to conduct, I will entertain a final motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Moved by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes?
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes?
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all, and thank you to the participants that hung out and watched this thing. And to all the applicants and volunteers, and everyone have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Night. Bye all.